The Round the World project was something I discussed with one of the guys at YME, at EICMA, and he just said, yeah, this is it, this is a great idea. How can it not be a great idea? You know, it's going around the world, it's the biggest test you can give a bike ever. And we did it. The MBE was great because, you know, there's only half a dozen of us in the motorbike world has got it. You've got Joey Dunlop's got one, of course. John McGuinness has just got one. Phil Reed got one in the past. You know, so I think I was the adventure guy. You got Fogarty's a superbike guy. John McGuinness is the TT guy, right? And so I was your adventure guy. I'm very pleased about that because you get one because you're authentic, because you're outstanding in your field. It's nothing to do with fame and fortune and celebrity. It's about, you know, the real actions that you've actually accomplished in your life. So that gave me a lot of satisfaction, if you like. Every artist likes to be recognised, you know. So yeah, we set off from there and that was it, bang, off around the world. Took the bike from there to London, flew to New York, obviously, and set off, you know, in November 2019, pre-COVID. I had no idea that anything was happening. Did hear about COVID slightly, you know, but it didn't mean anything to any of us, I don't think, at that time. I just rode across the States in the rain in November, and then made my way over to Big Sur, Highway 1, and then started heading south. Going further south across Mexico, I went down the Baja Peninsula and back up again, then across Mexico. And then you're hitting Central America, which you're going through Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, into Costa Rica, El Salvador, went through El Salvador, of course, and then into Panama. And then from Panama I flew a short bit over the Darien Gap and ended up in Bogota. Then we got Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, into Bolivia. Across the Andes, obviously several times, back and forth, from Chile into Argentina, and then from Argentina down to Tierra del Fuego, across Magellan Strait and right to the very bottom to Ushuaia, which is the southernmost city of the world. I've been there a few times, been there 8 times actually. And then back up to Santiago. And at that point, still hadn't got any big sign about, you know, COVID happening, you know, a few sounds and signals. But by and large, we flew to Sydney thinking we could carry on. And we got the bike through customs, everything was fine. Yamaha Australia were very helpful. And I literally set off. And the very day I set off, heading towards where I was heading, you know, across Australia, I got a call saying, look, you can't get into Northern Territories, it's closed down. I even then worked out a route around Australia, not including the Northern Territories. And then the next minute, everything else started to collapse around me. And then we had this major emergency. I had to return back to Sydney and that was it. And then it was a question of scrambling for the last plane home, which I got. And that was the end of the project. What we didn't think was going to happen, happened. It was a 2-year gap, and that was a long way. I mean, I needed a budget to complete it, and, you know, YME were my people. And we weren't sure whether we had the budget because, you know, things change, and all the big corporations have got big supply chain issues. So I thought the budget was imperiled. So I waited, and you know, my line manager, if you like, you know, my mate at Yamaha is Jeff Turner, and I was waiting for him to give me the nod, really, and keep me informed whilst I did other things. In that interim period, I motorbiked around the coast of Britain for Yamaha, obviously, and then I rode the Wild Atlantic Way, again, for Yamaha. So we kept ourselves busy, and then all of a sudden, you know, COVID was dissipating, and we were just waiting, and Yamaha said, yep, here's the budget. And we were just waiting, really, for Australia to open before we could go any further, and it opened, surprisingly, just in time, 22nd of February. I flew on the 23rd, and I started riding 6 hours later. And I had a 3-month gap. You know, I don't have eternal amounts of free time. I'm busy, I've got things to do, other than go around the world on a motorbike, funny enough. Although I do like doing it.
Winterland, tell me all your secrets. Fill me in on your wildest moments. Colored trees, your yellow leaves move me. Sunning into his hands. I get there, I let my feet roll.
Bus, plane, train, hate walking, and I'm in search of Yamaha. It's where my bike's been stashed for the last 2 years. And here we are, Yamaha at last, great. How exciting, the journey can begin. This is my bike, my Ténéré 700. I just left it 2 years ago, and it, you know, I don't think it's been touched since really, apart from the lads at Yamaha have kind of fettled it a bit, but all my baggage is still in exactly the same place where I left it, strapped on. Wow, it's really great to be acquainted with my bike. every time I travel to faraway places, it always kind of feels the same. The trees, the fields, the fences, the roads. But then you switch off the engine, you listen to the sounds, and it's like being in an alternative reality. It's not the same. It's not the same at all.
Australia was great. It's one of my favourite countries, and it has everything. It certainly has all the extreme stuff that you need for motorbiking around the world, deserts, mountains to some degree, but definitely deserts, long roads, isolation, loneliness, all the kind of things that world bikers have got to endure in order to go around the world. So we set off obviously from Sydney down to the we're looking for good bits, Victoria, Great Ocean Highway. And then you go from Adelaide going north up the Oodnadatta track, which is the outback, and it's a dirt track. And this is exactly what we wanted to see the Ténéré 700 do. Now I know we've got exponents, of the bike who can backflip and do everything. I can't do that. And they can ride up and down sand dunes. And it's all very well selling the bike like that, but that's not what ordinary bikers do. What they really want to see, ultimately, that's the extreme end of its capabilities, but what they really want to see, I think, is an ordinary bloke like me, if you like, riding it somewhere different. Oodnadatta track, handled the dirt really well. Lots of bits where it could slam dunk you into the dirt. Did that up to near Alice Spring, turned south, then went across the Nullarbor Plain. I was going to head north, but there's no point. I went across the Nullarbor Plain, got to Perth, then we carried on with the journey from there. So from Perth, we had a problem basically from trying to get into India. Now, of all the 166 countries that can get into India with an e-visa, which is instantly, because of Brexit, Britain isn't one of them. So I had to appear in person at an embassy and so forth, and that just took 10 days. It was just a real nuisance. I got my Indian visa, but by the time I got it, and then by the time you're going to freight your bike into India another week, we're thinking this is going to take too long. We're going to spend 6 weeks, fanning around with a bike trying to get to India and ultimately for a week. What for? And I've been there 20 times before. I needed a new look. I needed a new feel to my world travels. So I looked into travelling across the Middle East, which I'd never done before, and hitherto, recently, wasn't possible for an individual traveller. That I knew of anyway. So I checked it out, I got the visa for Saudi Arabia, and I kind of went in on a bit of a whim. I thought, well, I think we can do this. I had to, no choice. But no, I got to Dubai, and I met all my, my contacts there, and then I headed out of Dubai, which is United Arab Emirates, into Oman, and started discovering new things. And all the time people reassuring me, yes, you can cross the Saudi border, no problem. So Oman was one of these privileged places to go to, absolutely a pearl of a country on the Arabian Peninsula, the southern tip next to Yemen. And then I got into Saudi. I mean, wow, they'd never seen people like me come into their country before. It was really new. And I tell you what, I would go into Saudi Arabia, and I was doing the big cities, which are very posh and pleasurable to see, of course. But in the back roads, which I took across Saudi Arabia, which again, you're reducing it down to very few people who bother to do this, it was a different world entirely. Not rich. The rich is in the cities. You'll be in a supermarket queue and I've got a pint of milk and some bloke in front of me will pay for it. Their hospitality through their faith or through whatever was extremely wonderful. It's the people. The people are what make it for me. And they're all beautiful. Well, after Saudi, I wiggled up Saudi and I went into Jordan and to places like Petra and Wadi Musa. Took some nice shots looking for, photo opportunities for the bike, really. All the time I'm filming, all the time I'm wondering where's the story for the day. I'm an Instagrammer, so my stories are all, condensed into 59 seconds. But ostensibly it's looking for those highlighted moments. And there were many of them every day. They're not very obvious sometimes. It's only when you stop and you talk to a shepherd and he's there and he's on his own. You wonder, how does he live? And he wants to play with the camera with you, and it's all very fun. And you suddenly get a story out of the blue, which you would never normally get. You get the stories when you stop. That's the thing. And you get them when you slow down, and you get them when you stop. I've realised that. I never got the stories quite the same way when I was riding around the world in an R1 in 19 days. You do 1,000 miles a day, you're not stopping. Jordan and then into Israel, interestingly enough. And inevitably I got lost somewhere in Israel, I can't remember, on the outskirts of Jerusalem. And you just wander into Palestine. You can't miss it. Geographically, or shall I put it, how do you put it, in terms of the boundaries of where the territorial areas are, it's a mess. You don't know whether you're here or there and so forth, because it's not straightforward, let's put it that way. But I was in Palestine, and it was wonderful. I mean, you know, I was talking to a bloke who was selling orange juice on the side of the road. Suddenly I was lost in a turmoil of cars, you know, all stuck in a big traffic jam in a difficult part of Palestine. You might say it's dangerous, except it's not. It's depending on your attitude. And we were chatting away. And he said to me, while you're with me, you're completely safe. And then he'd been chucking rocks at, you know, at the Israelis in his time. Had just come out of prison for 5 years, but what a nice bloke. Anyway, Israel, got the boat from Haifa to Greece and then carried on across Europe, which had less interest to me, to be honest, because I'll cover Europe in another story. So really we're talking about the big stuff, Saudi, Oman, you know, Australia. And of course the previous journeys, which we've discussed, North, Central and South America. Every day's a highlight. You know, you ask what's your favourite country and what's your favourite moment. Well, I think it's the last one you can actually remember, because there are a lot. Crossing the Andes is always great. I crossed the Andes 5 times on the journey, so it wasn't a kind of a linear project where you're just going in a straight line. You know, Patagonia is just wonderful. When you get down to the Magellan Strait, you're going into an historical kind of theatre. You know, all the round-the-world travellers would have used the Magellans. Magellan, of course, Vasco da Gama, all the rest of it, Christopher Columbus, I don't know. They've all passed that strait. They've all created and named these countries. And I'm just part of that historical procession, if you like, of world travellers that, you know, go to places which have already been found. New places. El Salvador was great at a particular time. It used to be very, very dangerous. Maybe it still is, but it didn't affect me. That gave me a lot of pleasure. The highlight is riding the bike. You ride that bike and you're suddenly on it, and you're suddenly in a desert and you're on your own and you're soloing, and all of a sudden you get into that kind of wow feeling. I think every motorcyclist gets this, of course. We're nature lovers. We like looking at the scenery. We like stopping. We like smelling the flowers, actually. You know, that's why we ride our bikes. We're geographical travellers, all of us, you know. I've not met a motorcyclist that doesn't like looking around. You know, I'm almost boring, really, because I've kind of got to the point where I'm, you know, if I say so myself, after 8 times, and God knows how many countries I've been through, and 1,000,000 kilometres, right? I think I'm kind of slightly, you know, I've got better at it, let's put it that way. So I can sense and smell almost, you know, difficult situations coming up, so I avoid them. You know, I want to be kind of medically boring, right? It's the same with travelling. You want to be a little bit boring. I'm a boring traveller. You know, nothing dramatic happens to me because I don't want that. I mean, I dumped the bike a couple of times, you know, in Mexico, in the Baja Peninsula. There's just nobody there. A car doesn't pass all day. So there is a chance that things could go very, you know, badly wrong. I didn't know how to handle the bike in sand, and nobody had ever trained me to do that. You know, I'm up to its axles in it, and the back's down there. But you know, you put it to one side, you learn how to lift a bike out of a big hole, and you wiggle it out. You see it's all right, if everything's fine, you carry on. It might seem very dramatic to somebody if you're not used to that sort of thing. You know, your bike's literally half buried in a sandpit. But to me, it's just something, well, there's no choice, you know. It's like I said, you can't phone a friend, just get on with it and so forth. I don't have a people problem. No, not really. Look, there are psychos out there all the time, you know, and you can tell because they don't look at you. So that's it. You don't start a conversation with them. It's obvious. You know, if you want a medical emergency, carry on. You don't need bike maintenance. I mean, it's a Yamaha. Am I being silly here? You just don't. I changed the oil once. I'm absolutely the right person for Yamaha to, you know, work with me, give me a bike, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't need any maintenance. Again, it's medically boring, right? It just is. It attacked the chain a couple of times, didn't have a puncture. What happens is, in the old days, you know, you need to fettle your bike, you know, clean out the sump, I don't know what you do with it, spark plugs, check the points, all that kind of stuff. And that's great, that's part of the fabric of the story at the time. Half the journey is you know, keeping the bike going. But it's not like that now. And I think when a lot of manufacturers are caught up in some ways, we've got very reliable bikes out there. Yamaha is definitely the leading range of machinery that you know you can rely on, no question about it. I've been on Yamahas for 20 years solidly, so I think I know what I'm talking about. Yamahas don't break down, and I can testify that because on my trips, they haven't broken down. So yeah, no dramas there, unfortunately. But what it allows you to do, it allows you to focus on the job in hand. You know, what you're recording, what you're filming, what you're writing about, what you're thinking. I know the bike's going to get through the day. I know it's going to start in the morning. No worries.
my office now. Every journey comes to an end, and that's a good thing. Time to reflect and plan for new adventures. But let's remember that this world ride was the only circumnavigation to straddle one of the greatest pandemics in recent history. And for me, this has got great meaning. It means somehow that the human spirit will always prevail. We will continue to explore. We will be ambassadors on our motorbikes in faraway lands. The outback of Australia, for example, was gorgeous. Beautiful Oman, the empty quarter in Saudi Arabia, Israel and Palestine and Jordan, then Europe, then home. Back to my family. And what a bike, what a precision tool that lets me time travel all over the world. You know, we're lucky, and I thank my lucky stars every day that I can do this. I hope you enjoy my journeys, and I hope you enjoy yours. From Yamaha and me, thank you for watching.